My wife cheated on me with her boss, then forged my signature to transfer our $500, $0 inheritance into her name, only to find out the lawyer she hired was working with her all along to sell our house and leave me with nothing. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Honestly, my life seemed pretty straightforward up until about 6 months ago. I was married to Lisa for 7 years, and for the most part, we were your typical suburban couple. She was beautiful, ambitious, and always had a sharp tongue when she was annoyed, but I thought that was just her personality. I worked hard as a project manager at a construction firm, and Lisa was a real estate agent who loved to flaunt her success. We had a nice house, a good life, and a decent inheritance that my grandparents left us, about $500,000. We talked about investing it, traveling, maybe even starting a family someday. Then out of nowhere, everything started to feel off. Lisa became more distant, secretive even. She'd leave her phone on silent all the time, hide her texts, and sometimes I'd catch her lying about where she was or who she was with. Small things at first, missing dinner dates, unexplained late nights. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just stressed or busy. But I noticed how she started dressing differently, more provocative, especially when she was going out with friends. She'd come back with a new perfume and her stories about her day didn't add up. Still, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I loved her and I believed in our relationship. Then one night I came home early from a business trip. I had a gut feeling, a strange sensation that I couldn't shake. I decided to check her phone while she was in the shower. I know, it's invasive, but I was desperate. What I saw made my stomach drop. There were messages from her boss, Jason, that weren't just friendly. They were flirtatious, intimate even. She called him baby, said she missed him, and there were a few photos of her in lingerie. I couldn't believe it. This was real. My wife, the woman I trusted, was cheating on me with her boss. I felt numb for a moment, then furious. I took screenshots, hid her phone, and waited for her to come out. When she did, I confronted her right then and there. Her face turned white and she started lying, saying it was just a fling, that it didn't mean anything, that she was stressed and it was a mistake. She told me Jason was just a bad influence and that I was overreacting, but I knew better. I saw the truth in her eyes and I could feel the betrayal deep in my bones. How long had this been going on? Was it just her boss or was there more? The questions spun in my mind, but one thing was clear: my wife had been lying to me for months. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing. I felt a mix of anger, heartbreak, and confusion. How could she do this? After everything we built, she threw it all away for some office sex. And that wasn't even the worst part. I later found out that she had been forging my signature to transfer our inheritance, $500,000, into her name. She was planning to run away with it, I guess. The thought of her stealing from us, betraying me so blatantly, made my blood boil. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. It was like everything I believed about her was a lie. That night, I vowed to find out the full extent of her betrayal and to take back what was mine. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew I had to do something that would make her regret ever crossing me. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding and my stomach was in knots. I couldn't focus on anything else. The betrayal was fresh, and I kept replaying that night's discovery over and over. I had the evidence, screenshots of her messages, the knowledge that she was cheating, and that she was planning to take everything I thought was secure. But I needed more. I needed to understand how deep this went. I decided I had to dig into her phone more thoroughly. I knew she kept her phone closed, always on her, so I waited until she left for work. I took her phone while she was out, carefully, quietly. I knew I had to be cautious. I didn't want her to suspect. When I finally got a chance, I unlocked it with her passcode, something she'd never changed. I scrolled through her messages, her emails, her calendar. What I found was worse than I expected. There were explicit plans with Jason, dates, secret meetings. And buried within her email correspondence was a file, an official-looking document that had her signature forged, transferring our inheritance into her name. I couldn't believe it. She'd been planning this for weeks, maybe months. She'd even hired a lawyer, a guy named Mark who was supposed to be helping her, but I was starting to suspect he was in on it. When I looked at the lawyer's email, I saw a pattern. He'd been communicating with her behind my back, coordinating everything. All of this was meticulously planned. I felt a surge of rage. My wife, my partner, had been orchestrating this entire scheme right under my nose. I spent the next hour gathering everything: screenshots, emails, bank statements. I needed proof because I knew I couldn't confront her without solid evidence. I also started to think about how to approach this. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. How could she betray me like this? How could she lie, cheat, and then try to steal everything from under my nose? That night I sat in silence, going over everything I'd uncovered. My mind was racing, trying to come up with a plan. I couldn't just let her get away with this. She was planning to leave, to take our home, our inheritance, everything. I knew I had to act fast. I decided I'd need legal help, but I also wanted to get ahead of her, to catch her in the act if she tried to do anything sneaky. I started to prepare myself for the confrontation I knew was coming. I was going to expose her, but I also wanted to make sure I protected what was mine. In that moment, I realized I was no longer just a hurt husband. I was a man scorned, betrayed, and ready to fight for what was rightfully mine. I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it yet, but I was certain that this wasn't going to end with her walking away with everything. I had to stop her, and I was going to do it, no matter what it took. The following days turned into a whirlwind of planning. I contacted a lawyer, someone I found through a trusted friend, and explained everything I'd uncovered. His name was David, and he seemed sharp, experienced with cases involving fraud and betrayal. I laid out the facts: the forged signature, the transfer of inheritance, the affair with her boss Jason, and her secret meetings. David listened carefully, took notes, and told me I had a strong case to contest the transfer and to get a restraining order if necessary. Meanwhile, I kept a close watch on Lisa. She was acting even more erratic, maybe sensing that I was onto her. She'd be overly affectionate one moment, then cold and dismissive the next. I knew she was trying to manipulate the situation, probably to make me doubt myself or to buy her more time, but I wasn't falling for it. Every conversation, every interaction, I kept my guard up. I wasn't going to let her spin her web and escape with our money. One evening, I decided I needed to confront her directly. I wanted her to see that I knew everything. She was home when I walked in from work. I found her in the kitchen wearing that same smirk she always had when she was hiding something. I kept calm, but inside I was boiling. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "Lisa, I know about the affair. I know about the transfer. I know you've been lying to me for months." Her eyes widened for a second, then she tried to act innocent. "Oh, come on, Jason. You're overreacting. It's not what it looks like." She gave me that fake, bitchy smile, the one she used to wear when she thought she could manipulate her way out of anything. I didn't buy it. I told her I had everything: screenshots, emails, the forged signature, the lawyer's involvement. Her face turned pale, but she quickly recovered, throwing out more lies. "You don't understand. I was just trying to get ahead. We've been arguing about money, and I thought I was doing the right thing. You don't know how stressful things have been for me." I shook my head. Her excuses sounded hollow, even to me. I could see right through her. She was a master at lying, but her lies were crumbling. I told her I was going to stop her from stealing everything we had, that I was going to fight her in court. That's when she snapped. She accused me of being paranoid, said I was ruining everything because I didn't trust her. She called me jealous and insecure, like I was the problem, but I knew better. I knew she was the problem. That night I lay awake again, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. The betrayal, the lies, the theft. My wife had turned into a stranger. I felt hurt, but also a strange sense of clarity. I realized that I'd been blind for too long. I had loved her, yes, but she had betrayed me in the worst way possible. I was furious, but I also knew I had to be smart. I couldn't let her get away with this. Not without a fight. The next step was clear. I had to get the legal process moving. I contacted David again and told him I wanted to freeze the transfer of the inheritance, get a court order, and start the process of revering what she'd done. I also decided I'd have to be prepared for her to try to run or hide. I'd start looking into her bank accounts, her phone, her email, and any other places she might try to stash money or assets. I couldn't trust her anymore. Not after everything I'd seen and heard. Honestly, I felt exhausted but also determined. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about proving that I wasn't going to be played or betrayed without consequences. I was tired of being the fool, and I was ready to fight for what was mine, my house, my inheritance, my dignity. I didn't know exactly how it was going to end, but I knew I wasn't going to let her win, not without a serious battle. Over the next couple of days, I threw myself into action. I met with David, my lawyer, and we drafted a series of motions to freeze the assets and contest the transfer of the inheritance. He also advised me to gather more concrete evidence, surveillance footage if possible, any financial transactions, and to keep a close eye on her movements. I wasn't about to let her slip away with everything. The more I uncovered, the angrier I became. It was like she had planned this whole thing from the start, and I had been too blind to see it. While all this legal stuff was happening behind the scenes, I kept my eyes open for any signs of her trying to make a run for it. I started checking her bank accounts, her email, and her phone records, just in case she was planning something sneaky. I also hired a private investigator, just to keep tabs on her whereabouts. It felt like I was fighting a war I didn't want to be in, but I refused to give up. Every day I felt more betrayed, more angry, and more determined to take everything back. One afternoon, I was at home when she suddenly came back earlier than usual. She looked nervous, jittery even. She was acting like she'd been caught red-handed, which I guess she kind of was. She tried to brush past me, but I blocked her path. I told her I knew about her meetings with Jason, about her forging my signature, and about her plans to run off with the money. Her face twisted into a mixture of anger and panic. "You don't understand, I was just trying to fix things," she spat. "You're always so paranoid, so insecure. I was doing this for us, for our future. You're just too stupid to see it." Her voice was shrill, full of venom. I looked at her and felt nothing but disgust. She was lying again, twisting everything to serve her own agenda. I told her she was done, that I was going to take her to court and stop her from stealing everything. I could see her trying to manipulate me, but I'd heard enough lies. That night, I stayed up late, going through everything I'd collected. I knew she would try to deny everything, but I had enough proof to crush her. I also started to prepare emotionally. I'd always believed in the sanctity of marriage, but this betrayal cut deep. I wondered if I'd ever trust again, or if I was doomed to be just another victim of someone's greed and selfishness. Still, I refused to let her win. I was going to fight for what was rightfully mine, my house, my inheritance, and my dignity. The following morning, I called David again. We finalized the legal filings, and I made it clear I wanted a court hearing as soon as possible. I also started contacting financial institutions to flag any suspicious activity. I wasn't going to let her liquidate the assets or hide the money. If she thought she could get away with cheating, lying, and forging, she was dead wrong. I was ready to go all the way to make sure she paid for what she did. Honestly, I felt exhausted, but also strangely relieved. Knowing I was taking action gave me a sliver of hope that I could still salvage some sense of justice. I didn't want to be the victim anymore. I wanted to be the man who stood up and fought back. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I also knew I couldn't let her get away with destroying everything we had built. This was about more than money now. It was about respect, about standing my ground. And I was going to do just that, no matter what it took. A week later, things started to escalate. The court date was scheduled, and I felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. Relief because I finally had a plan, but dread because I knew Lisa wouldn't go down without a fight. She was already trying to spin her lies, calling friends, trying to paint me as the bad guy. I could see the desperation in her eyes when she tried to manipulate people, but I wasn't having any of it. I had enough proof now, and I was ready to show the court everything. Her lies, her forgery, her affair, everything. In the meantime, I kept a close eye on her. I installed some discreet cameras around the house, just in case she tried to sneak out or do something stupid. I also started working with the private investigator more intensively. Turns out, she'd been meeting Jason at a fancy hotel downtown, and there were receipts, proof that she was actively planning her escape. Every new piece of evidence just fueled my anger. How could she betray me like this? How could she lie so blatantly, then expect to walk away scot-free? One evening, I caught her trying to access her email account from her phone. When I peeked over her shoulder, I saw her trying to delete some messages. I quickly grabbed her phone, and that's when she snapped. She started yelling, calling me crazy, accusing me of stalking her, but I wasn't backing down. I told her I had everything: her lies, her secret meetings, the forged signatures. I told her she was done playing her games. Her face turned red with rage, and she started crying fake tears, trying to guilt-trip me into backing off. But I knew better. I'd seen her true face now. The court hearing finally arrived, and I was prepared. I brought all my evidence: screenshots, bank statements, emails, the legal documents. I watched her sitting there, trying to look innocent, but I saw the flicker of panic in her eyes. When the judge asked her about the forged signature and the transfer of inheritance, she stuttered and tried to deny everything, but I laid out the proof point by point. The judge was silent for a moment, then announced that the transfer was to be temporarily frozen until the case was resolved. I felt a small victory, but I knew this was only the beginning. After the hearing, Lisa lost her composure completely. She yelled at me in the courthouse parking lot, calling me every name in the book. She screamed that I was ruining her life, that she was just trying to do what was best for us, even if it meant lying and cheating. I just looked at her coldly and told her that her lies had caught up to her, that I would see her in court, and that I was going to fight to get everything back. I felt a strange sense of relief. Justice was beginning to take shape, even if it was just the start. In those moments, I realized how much I'd been blinded. I'd loved her, yes, but her greed and lies had poisoned everything. I learned that sometimes you can't save a relationship that's built on betrayal. I was ready to move on, to rebuild my life from the wreckage she'd left behind. But first, I had to make sure she paid for what she did, and that's exactly what I was going to do. No matter how much she lied, no matter how much she cried, the truth was out now, and I was determined to see justice served. The days that followed the court hearing felt like a blur. I was finally getting some clarity, but the emotional toll was heavy. I watched as Lisa's facade crumbled further, her once confident, bitchy attitude replaced by desperation. She tried everything to sway the court, to turn the tide in her favor: false tears, pleading, even trying to manipulate the legal system. But I had the evidence, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this. The judge was firm, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind, realizing she was losing control. In the weeks that came after, the legal process moved swiftly. The court ordered an audit of her accounts, froze the transfer of inheritance, and started proceedings to reverse the forged signatures. I also filed for divorce, knowing I couldn't stay married to someone who'd betrayed me so thoroughly. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but I knew I deserved better. I had never felt so betrayed, so humiliated, but at the same time, I felt a strange sense of relief. I was finally taking back control of my life. Throughout it all, I learned some hard lessons. Trust is fragile, and sometimes the people closest to you can turn out to be your biggest enemies. I also realized that revenge isn't about hurting someone just for the sake of it. It's about standing up for yourself and making things right. Lisa thought she could get away with her lies, her cheating, her theft. She thought she could manipulate her way out of it. But in the end, honesty and integrity still matter. Justice might be slow, but it's always worth fighting for. Now I'm slowly rebuilding. I've moved out of the house, started fresh in a new place, and I'm focusing on my own healing. I still think about everything that happened, how I was so blind, how I trusted someone who turned out to be my enemy. But I also know I'll be okay. I've learned to be more cautious, more aware. I've learned that sometimes you have to fight for what's right, even when it's painful. And most importantly, I've learned that no amount of money or success is worth sacrificing your integrity or your peace of mind. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs sooner, but I also know that I did everything I could. I fought for myself, for my dignity, and for what was rightfully mine. To anyone out there dealing with betrayal or deception, trust your instincts. Gather your evidence. Don't be afraid to stand up and fight for what's yours. Because in the end, the truth always comes out, and sometimes justice is the best revenge of all.